What is going on, guys? Today's video is an AI agent masterclass for all of those of you who've been interested in this technology and for good reason.
Agentic workflows.
Agents.
It has absolutely been exploding recently. You've seen it, you're interested in it, you want to build these things, but you may not know where to get started. And today we're going to be leveraging n8n. We're going to be starting from literally ground zero, building our way up and going through every single step of this together. Even if you don't have any experience, this video is going to be for you. Let me give you a couple examples of the kind of things that this technology can build out. This first example we're going to be building out together today. This is a personal assistant that can help with things like, for example, calling on your behalf. It can help with managing your Google Calendar or your Gmail or social media or your to-do list on Airtable, or maybe even managing documents like invoices and PDFs. Let's go ahead and try this out. I'm going to send over a message. Hey, can you please book a coffee appointment with Jono tomorrow at 2 p.m.? And so I've gone ahead, and I think my face is unfortunately blocking this, but I've gone ahead and I've delivered that audio message. I transcribed that audio message, and essentially what's going on here is this brain over here, or AI agent, is going to work for me, and it's going to essentially book a calendar event for me. We can go ahead and see that this coffee event with Jono has been officially booked. And again, there's just so many things that we can do with a personal assistant like this to hopefully help remove a lot of the tasks that you're doing manually right now. Another example is that we could hook this up to ChatGPT and we can supercharge it, like give it like steroids, essentially giving it access to thousands of other applications. So essentially how a scenario like this is working is we're sending in ChatGPT, and by the way, this is a plus plan over here, we're sending over an invoice like this, and it can take an invoice like this and it can automatically strip out all of the line items, things like tax, total, rates, all of that kind of stuff, and it can send it from ChatGPT into this particular n8n scenario here, which would then dump the data into a Google spreadsheet. So no more do you have to painstakingly go line item by line item pulling the stuff out, but we can automate the process through an AI agent like what I just showed you there. Another example is we could web scrape tons of data. And so this is a huge time saver for me because there's nothing more that I hate than having to go to places like Google Maps and painstakingly take every single one of these results one by one, grab the email and the phone number and the website URL, and you get the deal. Like it's horrible. But with AI automation, AI agents, we can just automatically take this whenever it is that we want to, and this is a huge time saver. And so these are just a couple of the examples. I'm actually going to give you all of these blueprints 100% for free for you guys to go ahead and download and use with step-by-step video showing how to build these out. But today what we're going to be doing, and by the way, with that last workflow, we just pump results into this particular Google Sheet right here. But essentially today what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building out our first AI agent together. So in today's video, we're going to first of all talk about what an AI agent is, just to give some clarity, because I know, like, for the first time when I heard AI agent, I was like, what the hell does that even mean? So we're going to be talking about this, and then we're going to be creating out two of the most popular use case scenarios out there today for what people use AI agents for, which will be a personal assistant. We're not going to build out the whole thing just because this could take like a couple hours to build by itself. So we're going to start, and then I'll give you the blueprints that you could literally take and then implement in a matter of a couple minutes for the rest of it. And then we're also going to be building out an AI chatbot that is trained on your entire business or life so that you can like dump in all of the information you need, and it will be able to provide answers to questions that are hyper specific to yourself or your business. And so I'm going to be giving away all of these blueprints as well down below in the description for free, as well as multiple other ones that I've found that other people love. And we're going to be learning everything about n8n and AI agents so that in building these examples, you just get how to use n8n, and you're hopefully by the end of this video, you're very proficient in this technology so that you can go off and build so many other cool things that are going to win back time and hopefully make you more money as well. With that being said, let's dive into this right now. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to open up an incognito tab here, and we're going to build this out together. Now, hopefully, what I'd like you to do is actually just like pause the video and follow along and build this out with me, because there's no better, more practical use case for you guys to learn than to actually do it yourself and apply. So hopefully you can do that. I'm opening an incognito tab here so that I can simulate my first time signing up for this particular software here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click get started here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to enter in all of my information here like I'm doing this for the first time. Okay, so let's go ahead and enter this information in, and I'll enter in my password as well. And we'll click get started with my 14-day free trial. Perfect. And here we go. We're loading in. It's going to ask us a bunch of questions that I don't really want to answer. Okay, cool. We're good to go. We've set this up. It's currently building out the workspace for us. And in a nutshell, we'll head over to our email here, and we're just going to verify our email because this is needed in order for us to log in properly. And so we've created our account, and back in n8n, it's just going to take a couple minutes. So I'm going to return after this has been. Okay, so we're good to go. I'm going to start automating here, and we're going to enter into our n8n environment. Now, keep in mind, this is a free day trial for 14 days. Essentially, in a nutshell, let me just break down this whole interface because this can feel kind of overwhelming. I'm just going to go ahead and say that you're going to spend 99.9% of your time just building out like a scenario or workflow. And these are like folders that you can share it in. Like you can have like your personal folder, you can have a project where you essentially add your coworkers or your friends onto here so that you can share projects back and forth and build it together. But in a nutshell, like personal and creating a workflow, more or less, whether you share it or it's in your personal folder, this view here is where you're going to spend 99.99% of your time. So I'm not going to go over the rest of the fluff. I'm just going to get straight into it. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about here is what is an actual AI agent. So before we go ahead and build this out, let's kind of cover what this is. So in a nutshell, like an AI agent, you can think about it like just like a digital employee. Think about hiring somebody remotely. Okay, they can think, they can decide, and they can take action on your behalf. It's almost like a robot that works on your computer. You give access to tools like your email, calendar, Google Drive, and it will use those tools to get things done. And so if you think about like an agent here, essentially what's going on here is you can message it just like you would like message on Slack or text or WhatsApp to your employees, being like, hey, do you mind doing something for me? And this AI agent will take your message and be like, okay, I'm going to reason as to what it is that you're actually looking to do. And then I'm actually going to go ahead and do that for you. And so it has the given tools that it needs to get the job done. Just like when you hire employees, you have to give them tools to get the job done. And then it will go ahead and use its reasoning to call the right tool. Now, in this instance, we're just having access to like Google Calendar here. But on the right-hand side, there's so many other tools that we can give it access to. And this is like the whole Google suite here, but you can give it access to Google Docs, Google Ads, Google Drive, Google Sheets, Google Slides, Google Calendar, Google Analytics. And then there's another like 1,000+ applications that you can give it access to as well. So I like to think about it really just like an employee online that gets tasks done for you. You just have to program it with the right tools in order to get the job done. And so the next question is what is the difference between AI automation and AI agents? And so I've kind of categorized these into two buckets because the reality is they are very similar. And unless you're in the space, it can be quite confusing what each one does. And so I have two examples. One is down here, and then one, I think my face is kind of blocking off. So I'm just going to zoom in here and show you exactly what this looks like so you can kind of see it. But essentially the main difference is this top line. So this is rule driven, right? It's with AI automation, what's going on here is you're doing repetitive rule-based tasks and workflows. So you essentially have a line and you're like, okay, first we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, and then we're going to do that. In that chronological order, there's very little mobility or changes that are going to happen. It's like very structured and very defined. Whereas with an AI agent, the goal is that you will send a message, and usually this message is like some like unstructured data. It's just a text message, for example, and it has to interpret what it is that you're trying to do, and it will make decisions autonomously on your behalf, right? So this AI agent will be like, based on your message, maybe you want me to search on Wikipedia to get an answer for a specific question. It will go ahead and use the tool that you gave it to accomplish the task that you set out for it. And so with AI automation over here, it can create new images, text, music that didn't exist before. So it generates new things. And this is kind of like generative AI, but like it can go ahead and create new things, but it is limited in nature. Whereas with an AI agent, it can interpret instructions. So it can understand what it is that you're trying to get it to do. It can handle complex inputs, and it can choose the best action. So again, it's autonomous, right? It's acting on your behalf. And then over here with AI automation, it can't handle unstructured data well. So like just sending off a message with a bunch of stuff in there, it's going to be like, whoa. Like we need actual data. We need to like have it all defined for you. Whereas this can handle unstructured data very, very well. And the last thing is with AI automation, there's no memory and there's no learning. It's just more like if this, then that. And that's kind of it, right? It's very rule-based. Whereas with AI agents, you can incorporate learning and memory capabilities into it, and it does adapt strategies based on new and past experiences in many cases. And so that is the biggest difference. Let's resume onwards and let's go ahead and let's create our first AI agent, which is essentially going to be part of this particular personal assistant. So the first thing that we're going to do here is we're going to hit this massive unavoidable plus sign here, which is considered the trigger. And what a trigger is it is the first step. It's what starts the workflow, or in other words, it starts the AI automation. And so we have lots of different options here, but usually when it comes down to AI agents, we want a chat trigger, which maybe my face is blocking. So if it is, I'm going to zoom in here and show that again. We have this on chat message here. And essentially what this does is it allows us to communicate back and forth with the AI agent. And so more or less, that is essentially it in a nutshell. What we can do is when we add this, we can just like click off. So all this like empty space here, this is usually what I click up top here just to exit off the page. And in a nutshell, that's it. It's like pretty much out of the box. What you see is what you get. This is done for us. Okay. And so the next step here is we want to actually do something. And so there's an infinite, well, maybe not an infinite, but there's so many things that we can do afterwards, and these are called actions. And the difference between a trigger and an action is that the trigger starts the whole workflow, and actions are everything that follows after it has been started. So we can hit the plus button here, and if we go into like actions in the app, for instance, there's just so many different things that we can do. However, in this instance, what I want to do is I want to create an AI agent. And so how we locate this is we could just type in the top here, AI agent, and then this is going to surface. And again, I'm just going to click off here just so we can return. And now we have a chat node here, and we have an AI agent node here with an error saying, hey, we're not set up properly yet. And so there's a couple things that actually go into this AI agent. So first of all, we need something called a chat model. And I'm going to zoom in here just so that you guys can see that a bit more clearly. But we need a chat model. This is like a large language model. This is kind of like the brain of the AI agent. And so you can plug in literally whatever AI chat model it is, or whatever large language model you want, and all of the options are down here. Now, I will say that in this whole video, this is the only thing that will likely cost you some money, just because when you're dealing with these APIs, they are not for free. The only one that may be for free is Grok chat model. I think they have like a free, like some free credits for you to use. But what I'm going to do is, and again, my face is unfortunately blocking this, and if I zoom in, I still think my face is inconveniently blocking it, but I'm going to go ahead and choose OpenAI chat model, just because that's kind of more or less what I am used to. Now, again, this is like the brain. So you can think about like a human, the brain is where the cognitive abilities happen. This is where the reasoning, the thinking happens in the AI agent. It's like, okay, I'm going to take a message that I've received and I need to do something with that message. And so this is where that reasoning happens. Okay. And so we can also actually get 100 free OpenAI credits, and we can claim this offer right here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give this a shot. And we're just going to get access to 100 free credits courtesy of n8n. So thank you very much for doing that. I take that back. You can 100% do this 100% for free. I was just trying to leave you on the edge of your seat there, anticipating what was going to happen next, but looks like we're good to go here. So we've got 100 free credits and we can give this a shot. Now, in terms of models, there's lots of different models. I don't want to particularly actually spend that much time on this because I feel like this doesn't age well. Every single time you make a new video about a new model, people watch it in 3 months from now and then it becomes outdated. But the time of this recording, which is June 17th, 2025, the newest model is 4.1. And so for that reason, I'm just going to use 4.1 mini. The reason why I use mini here is because with mini, it's cheaper. Anytime it says mini, it's cheaper and it's faster to use. And so for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to implement that. And so now here we go. We've created the brain. This can start thinking about things. So to this point in time, we've done a lot of cool stuff. We've added a chat, which means we can communicate with it. We have an AI agent and now we have a brain. So if we were to open the chat down here, we could ask questions. So I could be like, hey, and this will literally respond back to us and say, hey, how can I help you today? And at some point in time, this is like pretty much the exact same thing as having your own interface in ChatGPT. So if you were to just log into ChatGPT and use it, it's like the exact same as what we've just built out here. However, this is just kind of getting the ball rolling. Now we want to add in a couple more things. And so there's another couple unique characteristics to these AI agents inside n8n. And the first one that I want to go over next is memory. So memory is essentially how many messages in the past will this AI agent be able to recall. And so I'm going to go ahead and choose 5. I'm going to go ahead and choose simple memory up here. And the context window length is 5. Now, what this means in a nutshell is like, if I was to exit out of this and I just hit escape on my keyboard to exit out, it's going to remember like 5 messages, essentially. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? So 5 messages back. And the reason why that's important is because this is going to influence how it responds, right? So for instance, if I was to type here, like, what's the weather in New York in the winter time, or like, sorry, I'm actually going to go back and I'm just going to say like, what's it like in New York? Okay. And then it's going to give an answer to this, whatever. And I can follow up and I could be like, what's the temperature like there? And the problem is like, if we had no memory, it wouldn't remember what we're referring to when we say there. Like New York, it knows because we have a memory of the past messages. But if we were to remove this, it would ask like, what do you mean there? Like, I don't understand what you mean there. But because it can remember the past messages with the built-in memory now, we can see here, right? And so that's the key characteristics of the memory here, is that we're giving it the capability to remember past messages. And so that's part number 2. And I will say, I'm just going to delete this for now and go back to the memory. The biggest difference between the simple memory here and the other memories is that usually this lasts for the conversation of this particular workflow. So every time you execute it, it will remember it for the workflow and then it'll forget it for future workflows. And so if you want memory that's going to persist over time, so for example, let's say you had a client and you wanted to remember, maybe it's like a long sales process and it takes 6 months to 12 months to close a deal. And you want to remember all of the conversation you had between that person and an AI agent, you'd want memory that persists for a very long time. And so this simple memory, it just wouldn't cut it, because if you needed some critical detail on a message sent like 7 months prior, this isn't going to cut it. It's going to forget that. But if you need that memory, then I would recommend having other in-memory stores. And this is where the data persists for much longer. It's like you can almost think about it like an infinite amount of time, where once you put it in that database, it's just going to be there pretty much until this company goes bankrupt, or until you're, well, that sounds pretty morbid, so I'm just going to cut it off there. So anyways, yeah, more or less that is it. But in a nutshell, most of these AI agents, it's pretty much good to go just to use simple memory. And again, it's very easy to set up. And so for that reason, I would usually use that as my go-to until I need something a bit more heavy duty, or, for, whatever, if the case arises, then I'd switch, of course. And then we have tools over here. And so tools are like the third ingredient when it comes to AI agents that will really, it's like the secret sauce behind this whole thing. And so with tools, what's going on here is we're allowing n8n the ability to integrate into hundreds, if not thousands of tools. We can go over to n8n.io/integrations, and we can see some of the most popular integrations here, like Google Sheets. This is one of the most popular tools people use. Same with Telegram or Slack or Airtable, Google Drive. All of these different tools you're going to be able to access here and allow it to do certain things with. And so in this example, if we go back to our AI agent personal assistant, it has the ability to do a lot of things. It can make calls on our behalf. It can update Google Calendar events. It can send emails or update stuff or whatever, post on social media, and it can also gain access to Airtable and documents, such as like uploading invoices and contracts and entering them into a particular Google Sheet. And so for the purposes of this video, we're going to be focusing primarily on Google Calendar for now, and then I'm going to give you all of the blueprints plus a video on the rest of this, but you should be able to go ahead and grab those blueprints and incorporate it into your AI agent. So let's go ahead and let's build out the Google Calendar portion of this. And what that really looks like is an AI agent very similar to this, okay? And so let's go ahead, let's start this off. The first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna search for Google Calendar here, okay? And so with Google Calendar, when we add this in, there's a lot of things that are going on here, okay? The first thing is that we need to work chronologically down the list so that we can complete this entire node here. And so the first thing is this isn't going to work unless we actually add in our particular calendar. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit here and add a new credential, and it's going to ask me to sign in with Google. And I'm going to go ahead, enter in my email here, click continue, and give n8n access to my Google Calendar. And so what this is really doing is it's allowing n8n to effectively control my calendar, be able to add events, update events, delete events, search for events, all of that kind of stuff. So we'll go back to our particular scenario here, and we're good to go. We've connected this. We can exit out, and now we've connected it into our particular Google Calendar. The next thing is we have tool description. I just set automatically. I've never changed this in my life before. And then we have resource. Again, this is kind of something that's boilerplate. Just because something's listed here doesn't mean that you're always going to change it. A lot of this stuff is just boilerplate, and I would just keep it as event, and that's it. Operation is different. This is something that we're probably going to want to change. So we have create, delete, get many, update, and so on and so forth. So for instance, we could create a Google Calendar event. We could delete a Google Calendar event. We could get one calendar event. We could get more than one calendar event. We could update an existing calendar event. So there's so many things that we could do. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to choose create here. And then we have this start and we have end. Okay. And in a nutshell, what's going on here is we have this green text here, which is saying some weird code kind of. It's like curly brace, $, now, curly brace. And so inside n8n, effectively, you have something called functions. And what a function is this exact green text. Now, what it does is it's like code, and it can transform that code into something. So in this case, now represents the exact date and time down to the second. So it's 2025-06-17 down to the second with the time zone and everything else like that. And so that is essentially it with these functions. The only key thing here is that it has to be an expression for the function to work. If I change it to fixed, it's just going to be a static piece of text here. Okay, and we can like plug in whatever day or time that we want, but we're going to leave it as expression. Now, I'm just kind of trying to explain what that means, but ultimately speaking, with all this kind of stuff, we have this button here which says let the model define this parameter. And for 99% of the time when it comes to AI agents, you're just going to click that button when it comes to any of these fields, because you're going to let n8n determine when the start time is and when the end time was. Before, this was saying, hey, it's now, and it ends in an hour from now. But the reality is that, well, we don't know necessarily, like that's not always going to be the case. Maybe we want to create an event for tomorrow or the next day or so on and so forth. And so with that being said, what we really want to do is let AI define what the start and end time is, because what's going to happen is when we send a message to this chat here, maybe I say book an appointment tomorrow at 5 p.m. for 1 hour. We're going to let the AI pull out the start time and the end time from this particular message. We're not going to leave it a chance and be like, it's always going to be now and it's always going to last an hour. It just doesn't make sense. We're going to let AI define it. And lastly, we need to add a calendar in here. And so we'll go ahead and just add in whatever calendar you have over here. Okay, by default, it's going to load in all your calendars. We'll just select the one that makes the most sense, and that is essentially it. Okay, we can go ahead and click save up top here, and we're good to go. We've created the most basic AI agent we possibly could. We'll click enter here, and now what's going on is we have sent a message here. It's sent that over to the AI agent. It's pulled in the memory of the past conversations. So it's just remembering, okay, what's been said in the past? Is any of this relevant? And then it goes over to the AI chat model here, and it's going to formulate a response to the question. So it's like, hey, we need to book an appointment at 5 p.m. for 1 hour tomorrow. At this point in time, this is thinking, okay, what does that actually mean? What do I have to do? Okay. And it'll reason. It'll be like, okay, it needs to create an appointment tomorrow at 5 p.m. for 1 hour. And it'll circle back to the AI agent, and it will call the right tool here, which because it understands it has to book a calendar appointment, it'll call Google Calendar. And then it will, once it's booked, it will circle back to ChatGPT here to formulate the response, which it has automatically generated over here. And so that might sound confusing to you, but what I'm trying to get at here is that a lot of this is abstracted from you. A lot of this just happens without you having to program it. It just kind of is behind the scenes, behind like curtains where you're not even looking at, but all of these little things that are happening here, they're just all firing at the same time based on this existing workflow that we've already created. And so it'll respond saying your appointment has been successfully booked for tomorrow at 5 p.m. lasting 1 hour. If you need any more assistance, feel free to ask. We can go back to our particular calendar here, and I'm going to refresh the page, and we'll see that, it says that it's booked, but it's not actually booked. And so if we take a look at this and we open this up, when we open this Google Calendar widget up here and we look at the output, we can actually see what it delivered as a response. And so we can see here that the time is 2024, but the date is 2025 right now. So it actually got the date mixed up. And that is because AI agents are not perfect, and there's always some type of limitation, and we have to account for those limitations. And so essentially, in a nutshell, we need to program this to understand what today's date actually is. So inside the AI agent, what we're going to do is we're going to talk more about this. So we've kind of figured out the Google Calendar widget here, or the tool here. Now we need to go back to the AI agent and complete the setup here. So first of all of this is boilerplate and we're good to go for right now. Essentially what's going on here is it's just saying, hey, this AI agent is connected to a chat node over here. And this chat node, we're passing in a user message here. And what we have, which is what we typed out, which is book an appointment tomorrow at 5 p.m. for 1 hour, is listed right here. Now we can change this, we can change the output, and we'll get into that. But essentially we need to fix this Google Calendar because it's posting the event 1 year behind the actual date. So we're going to add option and we're going to go to something called a system message. And this system message is essentially the context that we need to provide this AI agent with to understand how it should execute things. And the first thing that we can do is at least start off by saying what the actual date is. And we're going to be going into the system prompt later on, but just for right now, I'm going to provide it with some rules. And one of the rules is I want to say today's date is, and remember how we had, we instead of hard coding it June 17th, because this is always going to change, we need to flip it to expression like I was mentioning earlier. And what this does is it allows us to enter in this green kind of text here, which is functions. And now we can enter in a particular function for the date. So we're always going to have to start the same way. We're going to hit curly brace, and anything in between here is now officially JavaScript, and we can hit $, and now, and we can click this, and pretty much that is it. If we were to open this up by hitting this button right here, we can see that the output says today's date is, and it will give us the official date just because we put in these curly braces, $, now. And so we can go ahead, we can test this out again, and now I'm going to send the exact same message here, and it's going to go to work for us and create that calendar event. And now, essentially, in a nutshell, we've created it. Okay, so we're making good progress here. The only other thing wrong here is that we don't have a calendar title. So if we go back, now we can add additional information down here. And very similarly to the AI agent, how we added additional options down here, and we'll get into all these later on. But we can also add additional options for all of these modules as well, or all of these nodes. And so we can add in additional fields. And for instance, we could be like, hey, I want you to add in a summary, which is essentially the title on Google Calendar. We can hit auto-populate using AI, and it will generate the summary for us. And we can add in whatever fields that we want here, and it will go ahead and it will use AI to populate those fields on our behalf. And so we've gone ahead and we've created a calendar event. But let's say that we want to take it one step further and we don't just want to create a calendar event, but maybe what we want to do is be able to update and also delete calendar events as well, because that's, we want to be able to plug into Google Calendar and do so much more than just one task, which would be creating. So we can go ahead and we can add in another tool, and we're going to search for Google Calendar again. But this time, what we're going to do is we're going to change the operation from create to update. And now what this is going to do is allow us to update an existing calendar event. And so from here, we can choose the same list again, and it's going to ask us for the event ID. And so this is the ID of this particular calendar event that we just created. Now, the issue is that we don't have access to this event ID. The only thing we have access to in here is the inputs. And I want to quickly go over this. The inputs on the left-hand side is the data that we received from past modules. We just have one module here. So any information that we've passed in here, we can access in all of these different nodes here. So if we were to come in here, like we could enter in, for instance, the chat input here. But the problem is that this is not the event ID. This is just the message that we sent. And we can always drag all these kind of things in. So in order for us to get this event ID, what we need to do is hit let the model again define this parameter. And what's going on here is that we're going to do one of two things. We can either depend on the memory of the AI agent to pull in the past ID, because when we create this, it's going to remember that, and then it's going to be able to update it based on the memory of the past execution where we actually created this. But if that doesn't work, then we need to add in a third module here. Okay, and we can actually go ahead and just test this out. Please update the title of the calendar event you just created. So let's go ahead and test this out, and we'll see that it's drawing an error here. It says the resource you're requesting can't be found. And that's because, again, we do not have this. So I apologize. This does not store the event ID. And so we need to find a way to grab that event ID. And how we're going to do that is we're going to add another tool here, and it's going to be Google Calendar. And this time, what we're going to do is we're going to choose an operation, which is to get an event. And so the difference between get and get many is that get is just referring to one event, get many is referring to multiple different events. And so what we're going to do is we're going to choose get, okay, and we're going to select the right calendar. And with we're going to choose get many, and the reason why we're choosing get many instead of get is because this is going to encounter the same error where we're choosing, it's going to ask for an event ID, but because we don't have that handy, we need to get many, and we're going to search for that event based on specific fields. And so in a nutshell, it's going to search for the calendar. We're going to search for a limit of 50 different events, which means that if there was 52 events matching the criteria we're searching for, it's only going to pull in a limit of 50. And it's going to search between two starting points. And so it's going to search before a date and after a date. And again, with all this kind of stuff, I'm just going to let AI define these parameters. So I'm going to say, for instance, now, in the order of operations, if we wanted to update this, we first need to essentially find that event. And so this is where the prompting comes in inside of n8n. And this is kind of where we need to structure the prompt properly. And so this is the system message, the prompt, where we define how we want to structure this properly. And so if I go back to my particular slideshow here, presentation, there's certain things that every single prompt should have in order for it to be successful. And I like to define it as 5 different things. The first is that we need to define the agent's role clearly, essentially providing it context as to what it actually does. So your helpful personal assistant, and your goal is to help Jono manage his life through managing applications like his calendar, for example. And I say this just because we could add more things to it, okay? And so that's the first thing, is you're responsible for taking incoming messages and determining what tools to call, and that's it. Cool. So we're defining what's going on here. Incoming messages, you have to call the right calendar tool. And then we need to list the available tools and what they do. So I'm going to do hashtag tools here, and then we can start defining these tools and when to use them. So the first one is that we create an event. Create calendar event. And this name here, it's really nice when we actually go ahead and we correspond these names to the particular name of the node down here. So if we open this up and we change this name up top here, we can actually change to create calendar event here, just to make sure it adds a bit more similarity between these. So we'll go ahead and choose create calendar event. And I'm going to say, call this tool when you want to create a new calendar event. Number 2, update calendar event. Call this tool when you want to update an existing calendar event. Please always search for the calendar event, because we need to provide additional context here, because it's not good enough just to update a calendar event. We need to first search for the calendar event to determine what we need to update. So I'm going to say, please always search for the calendar event and find it before going to update it. You need to specifically find the event ID. Okay, there we go. And then number 3 we have is find calendar event. Call this tool to search for the most relevant calendar event based on the user's description, based on the user's message. And so what we're saying here is, hey, you're going to receive a message and we need to find that calendar event. And then once we find that event, we can do things with it, such as update the calendar event. Okay, so really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and change these names here. So I'm going to go ahead and say update calendar event over here. And I'm also going to choose this name again. And I'm going to say find calendar event. We're going to copy this. And I'm just going to go ahead and copy and paste that right in there. Okay, sweet. We have gone ahead and we've added all 3 of these in here. There's a couple more things that I would put here. So we can define the output format if required, and we're going to cover this a bit later on. But usually when you're dealing with AI agents, like the format that it's sending back to you is just a message. But sometimes you may want to change the way that this data is structured, and we can send different, we can reformat this, and we're going to be talking about that later on. And we may want to give reasoning instructions to it. And so essentially, in a nutshell, we can open this up again and we can give instructions. So I'm going to say, think clearly step by step through the process of selecting the tool and deciding what to do next. And so what I'm trying to do here is just prompt the AI agent to slow it down just a bit, really think through every single steps before it takes an immediate action. So that's essentially what I want to do here is take your time when deciding, I'm just actually going to add a bit more, but deciding which tool to use. It's imperative that we select the right ones. Think clearly step by step through the process of selecting the tool and deciding what to do next. And then lastly, we may want to set rules or boundaries. And so a rule could be today's date is now. Another rule could be whenever updating a calendar event, always make sure to search for the event first. We must retrieve the event ID before updating the existing calendar event. Okay, and so this is like what I like to define as a good prompt. We have an intro, we have the tools, we have instructions, we have rules down here. And if we need a output format, we can always define that. We're going to go into that later on. I'm going to go ahead and save this. And now what we can do is we can say, please find the event we just created and update the title. Okay, and so now that that's done, let's go ahead and give this a shot. The only other thing is I want to go into this update event calendar, and I just want to make sure that we actually have the summary here so that when we go to update it, it does actually update the summary. Otherwise, it's not going to do that. So we'll open the chat here, and I'm going to say, please find the event tomorrow in my calendar and update the title to include coffee event, and we'll fire this off. It's going to first pull in the memory, think about what to do, search for that event, go back to the reasoning model, understand what is going on, what is the next step once we have the ID, which would be to update the calendar event. Then it's going to fire it back here to create the response and send it back. I found your event tomorrow and updated the title, include coffee event. If you need any more changes, please just let me know. And so we come back to the Google Calendar event, and now we have this listed inside our Google Calendar event. And so in a nutshell, that is the next step to this AI agent over here. And so for right now, I think that I'm pretty happy with that. The only thing that we might want to add in here is the ability to delete events. So I'm going to do Google Calendar tool, and we're going to select, instead of create, delete an event. And we're going to I'm going to choose the right calendar here. So ID, we need to choose from list here. And then we're going to go ahead and choose the right list again. And I'm going to choose the calendar ID is going to be filled in using AI. And so again, we can go back to the AI prompt, add it in here, that the fourth tool that we're going to add in, delete _ calendar _ events. Call this tool to delete a calendar event. And we can also use this same description down here afterwards. Please always search for the calendar event and find it before deleting it. Cool. You need to specifically find the event ID. And whenever, in the rules down here, I'm going to say whenever updating or deleting a calendar event, always make sure to search for the event first. We must retrieve the event ID before updating or deleting the existing calendar event. Okay, cool. We're going to go ahead and save that bad boy just before we forget, because there's nothing worse than having everything delete after you spend a metric amount of time or a ton of time building something out. And that looks good to me. Let's go ahead. Let's fire this off. I'm going to say, please find the event tomorrow. And you have to be careful with these prompts, because if you're not careful with them and you're not giving the right instructions, it might not always work. So for example, we could say, please delete this event. Let's go ahead and see if it remembers that event. So we're going to first find it and then delete it. And it's going to go back and delete it. And that's because, again, we have this memory here. And so it just, actually it did go ahead and find the event, but based on the memory, it knew which event to find, because we didn't put the date that we had to find it. It just knew when to search before and after, because it already had in its memory that existing event. So it knew how to search for it, find it, and then go ahead and delete it. And so now we no longer have that event here. And so that, in a nutshell, is like how we can create, how we can update, how we can delete, find, and events in Google Calendar, right? So super powerful stuff. Obviously, this is like just the beginning of it, but you can see how you could quickly take a system like this and apply it to pretty much every single other thing. And so the question then becomes, how do we take something like this and turn it into like a behemoth like this, where we have all of these different other options here: voice AI, voice assistant, Google Calendar, Gmail, social media posting, Airtable, documents. And so how we do this is we actually create something called a sub-agent. And so what a sub-agent is it's when this initial AI agent can call another AI agent. So you can think about it like having a chain of command, where all of a sudden this AI agent now sends direct messages down to specific AI agents. So one of those AI agents could be, for example, managing your calendar. Another one could manage your Gmail. Another one could manage, for instance, your to-do list. Another one could manage your Google Sheets, and so on and so forth. And so that, in a nutshell, is what we're going to be building out next. So let's get to this. What we're going to do is we're going to create another workflow over here. And I'm going to call this actually main AI agent. And we're going to create a secondary workflow, which will be calendar sub agent. Okay. And what we need to do is now have a new AI agent dedicated just to the calendar where this main AI agent calls it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this chat node just a bit over here, and we're going to copy all of this. And so I'm going to hold down Shift on my keyboard, and I'm going to drag over everything, and then I'm going to hit Command Copy on my keyboard, and then I'm going to go into this new workflow, and I'm going to hit Command V, and that's going to essentially duplicate it. Now, you could also just duplicate this entire workflow if you're unsure how to do that. In case you wanted to, you could hit the 3 dots here, and you could duplicate the workflow, and that works as well. And you essentially just delete the chat widget here. And so now we have a duplicate of this existing AI agent. And if we hit the plus button up top here, what we'll find is we're going to come into contact again with multiple triggers. And this time what we want to do is create a new trigger, and that is going to be this when executed by another workflow. And so essentially what this trigger means is that this whole workflow here will only run when a different workflow calls this workflow. So you can think about it like this will it's not going to run until we get something like our main AI agent to be like, hey, secondary AI agent, which is right here, I want you to run. And only when I ask you to run, will you run. Until I ask you, you won't run. And so that's essentially kind of the logic here, where it just waits indefinitely until that other AI agent requests it to run. And so in a nutshell here, what we're going to do is we're going to set this up so that we can have more of a modular build where all of a sudden this main AI agent has access to the sub agent, and we can build multiple of these sub agents so that it has access to way more tools. Now you could just create it like using tools here, and you could add in like 50 or 100, but the problem is that the more tools that you add here, the more difficult it becomes for the system prompt to understand, okay, like out of these 100 tools, like which one do I choose? It's much easier when it just has to decide with its reasoning and logic. It's like, what is this referring to? Do I need to hit the calendar? Do I need to hit the Gmail? Do I need to hit Google Sheets, your to-do list, invoices? Once you kind of break it up, it's just a lot more it's a lot easier for these AI agents to understand exactly what it is that it needs to do. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to delete all of these Google Calendar agents, okay? Because we have this in our subflow here, where this subflow agent has access to all of these calendars here. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to hit the tool again, hit the plus button, and we have something called call n8n workflow. And what this does is this allows us to start this secondary workflow. And so with the call n8n workflow tool, what we can do is we can add in something called a description, where we're telling it, hey, this is the description on, like, essentially telling it when we should use this tool, when this main AI agent here should send data over to this subflow here. So I'm going to say, for instance, I'm going to open this up and I'm going to say call this tool. Calling this tool just means like, when do you want to use this particular tool, which is the Google Calendar sub agent. So we're going to say call this tool when you're dealing with anything related to Google Calendar, and we're going to hit that. That's going to be perfect. And we have something called workflow. This is going to be the sub workflow that we need to select. And so we have this calendar sub agent here. We can click that. And now this is automatically going to hook up to here, meaning that we can send data back and forth. Okay, so now that's good to go. And we can essentially more or less do the same thing. We just need to make a couple modifications. One of the things is that when you have a secondary workflow here, we actually need to send data. Like, we need to send this message here through the sub workflow and then into this second workflow to receive that data to understand what's going on. Because if we don't have the message being like, hey, I want to create an event tomorrow at 2 p.m., how is it going to know essentially to create an event at tomorrow at 2 p.m.? The short answer is it's not. And so we need to make sure that we can pass this information between these two workflows. And so how we do that is through this new when executed by another workflow. We're going to click into this, and what we're going to do is we're going to define using JSON example here. And this is one of those things where like n8n requires JSON. This is technically not code. This is just a way of formatting data, which is both legible to humans and computers. It's a nice hybrid that's pretty easy for both machine and computer and humans to understand. But this is also something where if you don't feel comfortable with it, you can just ask ChatGPT to format it. So we can just copy this and we can go to ChatGPT, for instance, and I can say, I want to turn this JSON code into something that accepts one field, which is message. Okay, and we can paste this in, and it's going to go ahead and essentially modify this, and then we can just copy this and we can just paste it back in here. Okay, and so your message here. The only other thing is that I don't want to have like a blank message here of your message here. I usually just leave these empty by default, and that's it. And now we have some JSON example. In a nutshell, this is structured data. It's JSON data. It is defined by key value pairs. And so when we think about it, if we're sending in a message here, our message could be, please delete this event. And the key is message. This key is what we use to reference this message. So in order for us to like actually use this message, we need to define it as something like message here. So let's just that's essentially it. And we can add in additional pieces of information down below if we wanted to, but for this instance, we're just going to use this one. I'm going to kind of solidify this JSON data thing over and over again in this video. It's a bit of a complex topic to go over, and I do have a video describing exactly everything you need to know about JSON inside n8n if you guys want to watch that as well. Now, it's really important that we save this workflow, okay? Because we need to save it in order to link these up together. Once that's saved, we can go into this subflow here. And now, only because we saved this has now become available to us, this message thing here, okay? And if we didn't save it, it wouldn't be available. And so what this message is doing is now this is the key, and we have this field here that's available because we put in this JSON data right here. And so with this message, what we want to do is we want to send the chat message from this chatbot here. We want to pass it through the AI agent to the subflow, then have this subflow catch that data, send it to the AI agent, and then use that to be able to update, create, delete, all that kind of stuff, these calendar events. So that's in a nutshell the workflow here. And so how we do this is we can actually just drag and drop the initial message in this input section here, this chat input. We can just pass it over here. And so we're going to drag this, put it into the message, and now we're going to pass in this exact message right there. Please delete the event. And we can see it passes in please delete the event down here. And so what's going on now is we're passing data from the main AI agent to the secondary AI agent down below here. And the only other thing that needs to happen here is we need to make sure that when we're receiving the data from this, we are also passing it into this AI agent. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit the pencil icon up top, and I'm going to copy this, okay? I'm going to paste it in here, and I'm just going to say test message for now. We're going to save this, okay? And the reason why I'm doing that is because I want to load up data so that I can test this workflow down below here. And the reason why I'm testing it is because it's going to draw an error, and my face may be blocking this, but it's saying, hey, we have an error here. And we need to make sure that the input message here is correct. We can see it's red here, okay? That means that it's not receiving the correct message, because remember, and originally we copied it from this main AI agent, and it was looking for this particular chat message here, okay? And that is no longer the case because it's receiving it from this input here. And so what we want to do is change the source for the prompt, okay? We're going to change it to define below. And now what we're going to do is drag this message over to the prompt, and now we're passing in the message from this first step here to the AI agent. So we're passing the message we received here into the AI agent. So I want to back up and just talk about this from top to bottom, because this is such an important thing that you absolutely need to understand in case you want to master sub agents and make things super complicated. When a message is received in this chat note here, it is then sent into this main AI agent. Okay, it's sent into this prompt user. This JSON.chat input is the chat input right here. Okay, it's like the equivalent of dragging this over here. We're typing in a message, it's sending it to this AI prompt. We're then also passing that particular prompt into this subflow here. So if we open this up, we're dragging this chat input into the message right down here, so that it is then received in the subflow at this starting point when executed by another workflow. When we open this up, it's being received here, and it will kind of come in the output like this. I just put in test message for now. And then we need to make sure that this variable that we received in the subflow then gets passed into the AI agent here. And we need to make sure it's defined, right? The prompt user message is defined below. And then now when we click run, it should technically work, but I think we're missing one more thing. And it's saying down below here, and unfortunately I don't think I can zoom. Oh, I can zoom in. It's saying error in subnode, simple memory, no session ID found. What that means is that we're missing one last thing, and that is that this simple memory, we also need to make sure that we're passing in the particular session ID. And so we need to define below that session ID. Okay. And so for now, we could just pass in this message, although that's actually probably not the most useful case scenario. What we need to do is we need to pass in the session ID from here. And so we'll come back, and I'm going to paste this in to ChatGPT one more time. And we're going to say, to add one more thing, please add a session ID to this JSON data. And it will go ahead, it will create that, and now we can paste that in. Okay, now that we've pasted this in again, and it's kind of good that we're doing this like for a second time, because you'll see the repetition in doing this. We're now accepting these two fields. We can go ahead and click edit over here. We'll open this up and we'll paste in both. I'm going to say test message, and for session ID 1234. We'll click save and we'll click run. It's going to draw an error, but now we can pass in to the simple memory the session ID. We have session ID passed into the key, and now we're good to go. But you'll notice that you might be thinking, well, you're just passing in test parameters here, so why does that actually matter? And we're going to go ahead and save this, go back to the main AI agent, and we're getting this from the chat node here. Because we saved this up top here, we should now be able to hit this refresh button over here, and it's going to ask us for the session ID, because we defined that session ID over here again. And anything we define here will show up over here. And now we can pass in the session ID for the main chat widget here. This is a unique ID for that particular session. If you have 10 different clients messaging you and they all have different sessions, this is how the AI agent knows who is who. So if you have Bob and Stacy and Dylan messaging this AI agent, it knows who Bob, Dylan, and Stacy is based on this session ID up top here. So we'll go ahead, save. I'll open the chat widget here, and now we can go ahead and test this entire workflow out. Please create me an event tomorrow at 2 p.m. and we'll click save. It's going to use the AI agent to call the sub agent. Okay. It's going to return a message. I've created an event for you at 2 p.m. If you want to add any details or make changes, please let me know. And we'll go ahead and take a look at the calendar where it says scheduled event has been created. We can go ahead and update this saying, please update that event created tomorrow to have a title of birthday, let's just say. We'll go ahead in real time, it's going to go ahead and update that. Let's see this play out here, birthday. And then we can even go ahead and delete that event. Please delete that event you just created. And it'll go ahead and now delete that off of this Google Calendar in a couple seconds here. The suspense is killing me. Okay, there we go. Cool. So what's going on here? We're calling this sub agent here. And this sub agent, if we go into the executions, we can see past runs. The editor is how we create this AI agent. The executions tab is how we see past runs. And so these are past executions here. And we can see the data came in here. And if we open up any of these nodes, we can see what happened. And the data was, please delete that event you just created, which was the last message we just sent down here. And it also passed in this session ID up top here. If we were to copy this and search for it, it's the same one. And then we pass that through this AI agent that we set up. And now we have the brain determining what to do. We're searching for it, coming back to the brain, asking it what to do next. We're finding that event, deleting it, and then we've gone ahead and deleted it. Okay. And so why this is so important is because we could then go ahead and we could create more things. We could create another AI agent here, and this could be calling an n8n workflow tool. And this time we could be like, hey, I don't want you just to manage my Google Calendar. I want you to manage my Gmail. And so take, for example, this workflow here, which I'm going to include in the blueprints down below for free, where in a nutshell, it's more or less the exact same thing. We have the data that's being received, like confirm lunch tomorrow at 2 p.m. with Jono, okay? And we have this next statement where we have Google Contacts, where we search for that person based on their name. So we're searching for Jono based on their name, and we're gonna pull in certain fields, such as their name and their email. And again, you'd have to have the contacts in Google Contacts to work. If you've never used Google Contacts before, you're not going to mysteriously have these in there. So you'd need to actually pretty frequently update your Google Contacts with the people that you email, and then this would work. You could find the person based on their name. And the reason why you'd find them on their name is because if I'm like messaging here, I'm not going to know Jono's email or somebody else's email off the top of my head. I don't think anyone really knows other people's emails, at least by heart, but you know the person's name, and you can search the person's name up. And then once you search the name up, you can get information like, for instance, their email address. And then what you can do is you can have this AI agent. Again, this is just what's going on here is we have this if statement, and we're just seeing if the name exists. And if the name exists, then we search for the name. If the name doesn't exist, we're going to pass through. Okay. And the reason why is because if there's no name and we try and search for a name, but there is no name provided, it's going to throw an error. You can only have this work if you're searching for a name. So for example, if this all of a sudden didn't contain a name, so if I went in and edited this and there was no Jono there, just empty, it would cause an error and this whole thing would break. So I'm making sure that we only search if there actually is a name to search. And if there's not, then we continue forward. And then we merge both paths together. Again, we're just combining them into the result here. So that and the reason we do this is because if we didn't have this merge, then we'd have to have two AI agents, and we'd have to essentially more or less duplicate this whole thing. One for the Google Contacts and one for the if statement here. And because I don't think anyone would want to spend the time duplicating this and maintaining it twice, we're just going to merge it back together into one. And then we send it to the AI agent. And very similarly to what we did before, and again, this will be in the blueprints down below, we can manipulate everything we want to with Google, with Gmail, similarly to how we did it with Google Calendar down here. And so with Google Calendar, or with Gmail now, we could send off emails, we could reply to emails, we could label emails, we could create drafts, we could find emails, we could get labels, we could mark as unread and all that kind of stuff. So for instance, we could automatically send off an email to a person with a particular subject line. So if I wanted to, and again, these blueprints will be down below. We could just copy this really quickly in here. And I'm just going to create another application here for you guys to take a look at and just see. But we could create a workflow. This could be, I'm going to paste it in here, and you could download these blueprints in the description down below. We could paste this in there and just choose new credential. I'm going to sign in with Google. I'm going to sign in with my account here. Continue. Okay. Now that this is connected in, we have Google Contacts connected in here. And we could then go ahead, and I'm just going to send off an email in this instance. I'm not going to do anything else. All I'm going to do is that. And so we'll go ahead, we'll connect in our model here, just like we did before. We're going to send off an email. I'm going to create new credentials, sign in with my Google account. Every time you add an account in here, you will have to sign in and give permission. So we'll click continue. This has been connected now. We know it's been connected. We'll click off this, and we could go ahead and try and send an email out. So first of all, I'm just going to execute this to show you how fast this can work from the blueprints. So we've gone ahead and sent off the email. Okay, that's pretty cool. Like already out of the box, it's going to work. If you guys were to come in here, I would just put your name here. You can, it'll start with pin data. You just click this edit button. You'd enter in your name, and as long as you're in your Google Contacts, or if somebody's in your Google Contacts, it'll work immediately. Okay. And now we could connect this in. I'm going to title this Gmail subagent. Okay. And we'll go ahead and connect this into the main AI agent here. So again, we have this secondary n8n workflow tool, and this will be call this tool to deal with anything related to Gmail. Okay. And we'll hook in Gmail subagent, and it's going to ask for the message, and it's going to ask for the name. We can define this by using AI. It'll pull in the message from the chat input. And then what's cool is that it'll even pull in the name, and it'll just find the name within here, and then it'll pull it out here, and it should work out of the box. So we can go ahead, we can open this up, and I'm just going to say, please email Jono saying we're all set for tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'm going to go ahead. It's going to fire off this tool here, and it says that it's sent off. Now, if I go to the executions of this, again, we're going to the Subflow Gmail subagent, and I go to the executions tab here. We can see this workflow has been executed. Everything worked. It came through here, found the contact, merged them together, went to the AI agent, went to the brain to figure out what to do, determined to send an email, and went off to send the email. Now we can see that everything has been sent. Okay. Everything's been sent, and we're good to go. And so that is our secondary workflow. And all of these other blueprints here, they're all going to be for free down below for you guys to download in case you want to build out this AI personal assistant that is going to be able to hopefully supercharge your life and automate using a lot of the tasks that you're currently doing manually. And so that is the first part to this. The last thing that I just want to mention on this particular flow is that sometimes if we want, we could structure the data on the output here. And this can be quite important when you're using AI agents. So, oh, and by the way, with this particular system prompt here, I didn't change it. It worked kind of out of the box just because these AI agents are pretty good, but you kind of get the point on how to structure a prompt here. I'm not going to go through it again just because I don't want to spend time kind of reinventing the wheel here. But you know, you'd obviously want to go ahead and create a different prompt for this main AI agent. And that prompt would be different than these sub agents, right? They're all kind of doing something else. I guess the main thing that I would say here is your helpful personal assistant, and your goal is to help direct the query to the right sub agent. You have access to multiple sub agents. I like how I'm not going to do this. Then I dive right into it. But I think that it's kind of important. You have access to multiple subagents, and your goal is to pick the right sub agents to call. Okay. And so now it's like, okay, I understand I have multiple sub agents. I just need to figure out what it is. And you'd have like sub agent number 1 would be calendar, sub agent number 2 would be Gmail, and that's essentially it. You'd be like, for this workflow so far, call this tool when you want to do anything related to Google Calendar. And number 2, same, so on and so forth. Okay, cool. So that's essentially it. The only other thing is in this AI agent is we could require a specific output. And again, we can structure this information. So instead of it just being an output here, now what we could do is when we click that, we have access to this last plus button here, which is output parser. And now we can structure the output. And there's multiple different ways of doing this, but I like to have the last one, return data in defined JSON output. And so you can really pick whatever you want between these two. When it says deprecated here, it means that that's being phased out and they're no longer gonna really use that. And so again, with this JSON data, looks a bit intimidating. We can just go into ChatGPT and we can ask it, hey, this is how we want it to be structured. So I could be like, create me JSON data with the following 2 items: message and success / failure. And I'm gonna say the second variable should be Boolean. Now, Boolean is a data type. It's essentially saying true or false. You'll see how this is blue here and this is green, and we have the question marks around it. This is text. Okay, this is Boolean. Boolean is true or false. Those are the only 2 values it can ever be. And it's like, hey, are you verified on Twitter? It's like true or false. That's it. There's 2 answers. And so now when we do this and we test this out, and let's go ahead and please create an event tomorrow at 2 p.m. It'll go ahead and structure this output data. Cool. And so we can see the data just like this. And that could be helpful because, like, let's say that it didn't immediately return this here. Maybe you wanted to, route this down to 2 different paths. If this successfully happened, we did one thing with it. If it was unsuccessful, we did another thing with it. That's kind of how we could use something like structured output. So I just kind of wanted to bring that up. I didn't want to bring us down a rabbit hole here, but that is just one way of doing it. I'm going to uncheck that off just so you guys can kind of take a look and see how that works, or what that looks like. Now, last thing before moving on to this secondary workflow, this is all great to have like a chat widget here, but let's talk about some real use case scenarios, because you probably don't want to always come in here and chat with the n8n workflow or interface. That kind of defeats the purpose. So here's some of the most common methods of connecting in particular triggers here. So we could of course do the chatbot here. The cool thing about this is you can actually embed this onto your site. So this is something that you can embed straight onto a website. Telegram is maybe one of the most popular ones just because it's easy. So if you have like a trigger with yourself where you're just messaging yourself, this could be the easiest way to do it. Then you have Twilio, which is text messages. So if we head over to the Twilio website here, this is texting yourself back and forth. So if you wanted that medium, you could do that. You could also do it through like Siri. You could do it through Gmail. You could do it through your CRM. You could do it through WhatsApp and also Slack. So those are the most popular ones. I'm going to quickly show how to do Telegram here so that you guys can play around with just one more trigger. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to delete this and we're going to add a plus button here, and we're going to select what triggers this workflow. It's going to be on app event, and we're going to type in Telegram trigger here. Okay. And this is going to be on message. And so if I exit of this, we now have Telegram. I'm going to connect this into the AI agent. We're going to double tap this again. And the thing is that in order for this to work, we need to do 2 things. So the first thing is that we need to go into the App Store here, and we actually need to search for Telegram. Okay, so if you haven't done so already, you'll need to download Telegram. This is a free application. Now, the second thing is that we have to do here is we actually have to create credentials once we've created our account in Telegram. So I'm going to add in credentials, and it's going to ask for something called a access token. It's not too hard to get. We'll open these docs here, which is this orange text, and this will give us the exact step-by-step instructions on how to do this. In a nutshell, what we're going to do is we're going to scroll down the page, and it's going to give us the exact instructions. It's going to say, hey, start something with the bot father, which always cracks me up, which is essentially going to open Telegram. In a nutshell, what this is doing is the bot father is Telegram's version of a bot, and it allows you to do multiple things. So you can create bots on Telegram using this. And one of these bots is going to allow us to integrate into n8n. So when we send messages, we can send that into n8n. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to follow their instructions. And the next thing is it's going to say enter new bot here. And we'll go ahead and create that. And it's going to ask for the next step here, which is going to be a name. And I'm going to call this Bot Father Fan Club 101. And that looks good to me. And then we need to have a username. Okay. And it's going to tell us that this username has to have bot at the end. And it's either bot or underscore bot, one of these two. So it can be bot like this, camel case, or underscore bot like that. And we're good to go. It'll give us access to this HTTP API, this random code here. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to copy that. We're going to close this and paste it in the access token here and click save. Now that we've done that, we're successfully connected in, and we can now receive messages from Telegram. We'll click execute this step and we'll go back. We can see that it says, hey, find me at t.me/whatever. We're going to click into here. And as soon as we click start here, that is going to be received inside n8n right over here. Now, if we test this again, I can message something being like, hey, how's it going? And we're going to receive that message down here. Hey, how's it going? Now, lastly, what I want to do is be able to retrieve or receive messages back from Telegram. And in order to do that, what we're going to do is hit the plus button here, and I'm going to type in Telegram again, and we're going to respond to ourselves, or the AI agent will respond to us. And so we'll send a message here. We'll send a text message. And there's a couple things that we need. We need the chat ID and the text that we want to send. Now, the only problem is that we don't have anything on the input section here. And so we can't technically map anything in. And the reason why is because this AI agent here never actually was successful. It didn't pass the data back and forth. So what we're going to do is we're going to fire this workflow again and just make sure that the data that we receive, oops, I'm going to save this and refresh the page. It just looks like it's bugging a bit. Okay, we're going to execute this workflow. It's going to give us a problem over here. Hey, we have a problem running this workflow. That's just because this hasn't been set up properly. So I'm going to click that button right here, which is to deactivate it. And we're going to wait for data to come in. I'm going to say, please create an event tomorrow at 4 p.m. for skiing or whatever. And, oh, it looks like, okay, here we go. Error in subnode, simple memory. What's going on here is that because we changed the trigger, again, we have to change the input message into the AI agent because it's expecting instead that we're going to message through this chat node here. But because we no longer have this chat node, we need to communicate with this AI agent and memory that the message is actually coming from Telegram. So inside the AI agent, we're going to choose source for prompt, define below, and we're going to do chat ID over top here. We're also going to copy this chat ID message. We're going to paste in two more locations. The first is this simple memory. So we'll change this to define below. We'll put the key in there. Now we're good to go. This is a unique key. And this is fine because this is just referencing like this specific chat. Every time we're communicating through this chat, it'll have the same ID down here. So it'll remember which chat is which. And again, if you had like Bob, Stacy, and Dylan, every person, Bob, Stacy, and Dylan would have a different chat ID. And so this is just going to remember those chats. And then we also need to make sure we pass that session ID over here as well. And we can just turn these to AI too, and it'll pull that in. Okay, so we'll go ahead, execute this one more time. Okay. We'll save this. I'm going to disconnect this chat bot here. And I'm going to save this as well. And for whatever reason, it keeps running the scenario. I'm just going to refresh the page. And here we go. It's waiting for a response. I'm going to copy this and paste that in one more time. Please create an event tomorrow at 4 p.m. for skiing. Now it's going to go ahead and, it looks like it had another error here. So cannot create property on number whatever. Oh, that's weird. I've actually never received this message in my life before. So let's just go ahead and paste in something else. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to refresh the page and try it one more time. And sometimes bugs like this happen, but this is a bit rare. I'm not sure why that's the case. So we'll paste this in. And yeah, it looks like we're definitely receiving an error there. So I'm going to paste in from ID, and we're just going to pass in another ID over here. Okay, cool. We'll pass it in, and this should be good too. Same kind of deal. It's going to be unique to the person. And I would just use the chat ID here. I've ran this at least 15 times, and this is the first time I've ever encountered this bug. So I'm going to refresh the page, and we'll try it again. Oops. Can you please create an event for me at 4 p.m. for skiing? Okay, cool. And so it worked out. This worked, this worked. We just need to send the message back to ourselves. And so I'm going to activate this workflow again. And the reason why I needed to run through this is because now that we've successfully ran through it, we have the data to pass into Telegram here. And so the output is going to be here. Okay. And now what we need to pass in is from the Telegram trigger, we're going to pass in the chat ID over here. And so there we go. We have this, and we can give this a shot now. So we're going to wait for existing data. I'm going to clear this, refresh the page. Man, I don't know why this is the case. Maybe n8n is just having a bad day or whatever, but yeah, we're gonna go ahead and test this out one more time. Please create an event for tomorrow at 4 p.m. for skiing. And it's gonna say, I see you've repeated the number, whatever. Could you please provide more context on specifically how I can assist you with this number? For example, is this related to an account, an event? So maybe there's something that I entered in here wrong. And yeah, that looks like we entered in the, oh gosh, yeah, we entered in the chat ID here and the message ID. And what this should really be is the chat text over here. And so we are passing in like some random number, which is this, and it has no idea what that actually means. So we'll go ahead and test this out one more time. Cool. And I'll fire off this message. And we'll see if this successfully returns what we're looking for. I've created a calendar event for skiing at 4 p.m. If you want more details or set up a reminder for the event, please let me know. That sounds perfect. And now we have skiing at 4 p.m. there. Okay. We could go ahead, create more events. We could update the events. We could do anything that we want to with our AI agent. And now we have our own Telegram messenger added in, and you could extrapolate on this, and you can add in so many different other triggers in here, such as WhatsApp, and Twilio, and so on and so forth. Sweet. And so the next workflow that I want to build out, and the final workflow that we're going to talk about today, is something called a RAG system. And what RAG stands for is Retrieval Augmented Generation. This is actually such a popular build that a lot of business owners are capitalizing on today. You can think about this very simply like having a database, okay? Just a generic database. so far, nothing too crazy about just having a database. The difference between a database and retrieval augmented generation is, imagine having a database on all of your company's history, all of your contracts, invoices, every single one of your frequently asked questions, standard operating procedures, messages, everything being dumped in this database. And then anytime somebody asks a question, AI will go in, find the most specific and relevant answers, pull those out, and provide those answers to a customer. You can almost think about it like training an employee, hiring them, having them at your business for 15 years, training them over 15 years on every single question, every single answer, standard operating procedure. They're probably pretty good at answering questions when customers ask them. Same kind of deal with the RAG system. It's trained on your entire company's history. So take, for example, this. You could be like, hey, you could enter in plumbing frequently asked questions. And in a nutshell, if somebody asks, what kind of plumbing services do you offer? It will literally pull back the exact response that you fed into it, being like, oh, we offer a full range of plumbing services, including leak repairs, pipe replacement, drain replacement, all that kind of stuff. And so this is the kind of stuff you can add in there. And then when customers message you back and forth, you can pull out the specific queries that they ask for, and it can be very, very specific. So for instance, you could be like, what's your pricing? And in this pricing, if it was like, our hourly rate is $125 an hour, it would literally pull out $125 an hour and then put it out there for you, right? And it would just answer that question automatically. And so the difference between a RAG system is, you can almost imagine this database as being like three-dimensional, okay? And so what that means is that it will take incoming text, and this gets a bit abstract, and I'm going to try and simplify this as much as possible, but it'll take incoming text messages, and it will actually like associate numbers with those text messages. And so it'll break down semantic meanings between words like apples, banana, and oranges, and it will categorize them together, right? So apples, bananas, and oranges, they're all fruits. They're very similar together. Just like, king, woman, and man is more closely related than apples, bananas, and oranges, and like sports over here, football, golf, and tennis. It's all more similarly related. And so the thing is it clusters all this information together in your particular database here. And why that's important is because when somebody asks a question like, hey, what's the pricing that you have? You might not have the exact answer to that, but you might have, like, for example, you might not have $125 an hour, but you might have something very, very similar to that, where it's like, well, our pricing is ballpark range between $500 to $700 a day. And it's not the exact answer you're looking for, but it's the closest answer possible in your entire database. And so it will find the answer that is most closely related to the question based on the semantic meaning. It will break it down very into numbers here, analyzing so many different aspects of the text and the semantic meaning of the word and the question and all that kind of stuff. And it will deliver you the most hyper-specific relevant questions. So for instance, it's like, hey, what fruits do you have? And it'll be like, apple, banana, orange. And it's like, hey, do you talk about kiwis? No, we don't talk about kiwis. Do you talk about apples? Yeah, we talk about apples. Like, that's the kind of questions. And if we take it back to like business, it's like, it'll be like, hey, can you tell me about consultations? And it'll literally pull out this exact line that it talks about consultations. Hey, we offer free estimates for most plumbing jobs, especially for installations and larger repairs. And so that's essentially, in a nutshell, what we're building out here for the second project. We're going to go ahead and we're going to create a new workflow. There's two parts to this. The first part is that we actually need to insert data into our vector database. And again, the vector database is like kind of this. It's this three-dimensional sphere where we add data into it. And then the second part is we need to actually retrieve data out of it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start by, of course, adding data into this. Okay. And so I'm going to choose we're just going to have, like, when we click this button, it's going to start this workflow. But just because this is very much so like a manual process, but you can turn this automatically later on, and I'll tell you how to do that, but we're just going to start easy for now. So we're going to have the button that says, when we click this, we're going to add information into our database. And so I have these questions here, and I've since added them into this Google Drive folder here. Okay. And so I'm going to pull this data out of Google Drive, and I want to start with Google Drive because this is going to be a place where you probably receive or have at least a lot of documents, maybe this is a great place for you to start and actually import those documents into your vector database. So we'll go back, we'll return to our workflow here. And in this instance, I'm just going to close a couple tabs here, leave this, close this. And I want to pull this particular document out of Google Sheets, and we're going to add it into our vector database. So the next step in this process is once we click this to get the workflow started, we'll go into Google Drive and we'll pull out that document. So we're going to download a file here. And so we need to connect in our Google Drive account. The only problem is that when we're dealing with Google Drive, this is a huge pain in the butt. Like this really, really sucks. And I wanted to cover this specifically because if you're going to be serious about n8n, you're going to have to, there's no really avoiding this. You just have to do this at some point in time. And if you go through the documentation here, it's a nightmare. It really sucks. And this can feel like a maze where you just like feel like there's no exit. It just takes forever. Now, fortunately, I've spent a lot of time doing this many times, helping tons and tons of people through this. And I've created my own guide here, and it takes approximately 3 minutes to set this up. And I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to tell you guys exactly how to do this really, really quickly. And then that way you can just kind of rip the Band-Aid off and do something that you'll inevitably have to do in the matter of 3 minutes or less. And so essentially, I'm going to go through this step by step. This will be in the blueprints down below if you guys want to download it. We're just going to go through this together. In order for us to download files into Google Drive, okay, and then import these into our vector database, we need to integrate into Google Drive inside n8n. Integrating into n8n requires a couple steps. That's what we're going to do now. So we're going to click Create Credentials here, and this will be down below if you guys decide that you want to copy or like download this for free. But we're going to go to Google Cloud Console here, and it's going to be the Google Cloud Platform in order to connect in Google Drive. And the first thing that we're going to do, and this will tell you literally step by step, is if you haven't done so, you may have to verify your payment settings or verify through Google if it's your first time doing this. Sometimes for some people, they may ask for a card. They're not going to charge you, but they want to verify you right away. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to connect in my other account here. Okay, and we're going to create a new project up top here. That's the first step. And I'm going to call this test video / project. And we're going to create. Okay. Once we've gone ahead and created this, we can see that on the right hand side, it's telling us that we've created it. We're going to circle back into this by clicking over here and entering into that test project here. Okay, and this is also documented right here so that you guys can walk through this step by step. And there's, it's like every single click is documented here in case you ever get lost. Next step is enabling APIs. Inside the Google Cloud Console, we're gonna search for Google Drive API up top here. And we're gonna type that in, enter it. It's gonna be the first result. We're gonna click into that and we're gonna enable this Google Drive API. Okay, that's the second step here. Once that's done, we can move on to the next step. Keep in mind, if you guys are self-hosting n8n and you ever decide to do that, the process here is the exact same for Google Docs, Google Sheets, Google Calendar, Google Slides. And so essentially just keep that in mind. We're just on the cloud version, so you don't have to do this. This integrates automatically, but there's cheaper ways to get n8n, which is self-hosting. And if you do self-hosting, you'll have to do this exact process for all of these. Okay, Google Drive has been activated. The next step here is we're gonna hit the hamburger helper at the top left corner. And anytime you do this, by the way, anytime you go through this, this is a maze. This will reset the whole thing. We can just come up to the top, hit the hamburger helper and hit APIs and services, and we'll be reset like where we need to go every single time. So in case you get lost, this will kind of reset you this step here. We're gonna click OAuth consent screen on the corner sidebar here, and we're going to click Get Started. We're going to choose app name, video, test video, and we'll choose an email here, click Next. We need to choose external audience over here, which means that we can add test users. We're going to add ourselves as a test user in order to be able to access this particular integration, Google Drive. And we'll just sign away our entire life and everything. Like hopefully we don't have to pay Google $1 million. Finish, create, and we are good to go. Next step here is we're going to hit the hamburger helper again and click API and services. And this time we're going to click on OAuth consent screen and then click on audience. And remember how it asked us if we wanted that external app? This is the reason why, so that now we can add ourselves as a user here. And we're going to go ahead and publish this app as well and click confirm. A lot of steps to do something that I think everyone can agree should be super basic, super easy. I can't believe how difficult this is. We're going to hit the top left corner here, API and services one more time. And this time we're going to go back to the OAuth consent screen and we're going to create an OAuth client and we're going to choose web application. We're going to name this whatever we want. I'm just going to leave it at web client 1. This authorize JavaScript origins. We're going to skip over this. We're going to go to authorize redirect URIs and click add URI. And this URL here is essentially what we get inside n8n here. So again, anytime you're in a scenario, you'll drop any Google Drive node here, such as download file. And then we'll click into this and we'll click create credentials over top here. And this OAuth redirect URI is what we're looking for. We'll paste that inside here and we'll click create. Okay, we'll click OK here and we're almost done. The last thing that we need to do is we need to authenticate the apps. So we're going to hit the hamburger helper one more time. We're going to go into API and services. We're going to go into, credentials. We're going to hit this pencil icon over here. And we have our client ID, which we're going to copy and we're going to paste in here. And then we're going to paste in our client secret ID here. Okay. Sometimes other people will have other things that they need to enter in here. And if it asks you for other things, I would just make sure, if it asks you for the authorization URL, sometimes it does, just paste in this and then that'll be good to go. If it asks you for an access token URL, just paste in this and it'll be good to go as well. So that's just boilerplate for anyone. Then we can click sign in with Google. We can sign in with our account. We can, it'll say that we're not a verified app developer. That's just because I didn't verify with Google to make this. I'm an unverified app developer. So I'm going to click advanced and go to n8n cloud. We're going to select all these things and click continue. And now our account has been successfully connected in. And now what we can do is we can use Google Drive here. So that's essentially it. We've now authenticated Google Drive. From here, what I'll do is from the list, I want to grab a particular file. So specifically what we want to grab here is this plumbing FAQ PDF. So I'm going to type in plumbing and we can go ahead and execute the step. And now we see that the file has been added. Now, just before we move on here, just one other thing to keep in mind is that if you didn't want to manually trigger this every single time, what we could do instead is we could have another trigger down here, okay? And what this trigger is it's on app event and we're typing it in Google Drive. And instead of it being we're manually triggering this, maybe we want to trigger this anytime any file for whatever reason is added in a specific folder. So on changes involving to a specific folder, so we could add this in and then we could choose our test folder here, which is test2 folder. And anytime anything's dropped in here for whatever reason, we could automatically add that into our vector database. So file created here, okay? And we could fetch test result. We're getting that exact file back. And then the next thing here would be for us to essentially download that file. Okay, and then once we've downloaded it, we have our PDF of the plumbing questions. And again, this is kind of what the plumbing questions look like. And then we need to add that into something called a vector database. Now, there's lots of different vector databases that we can add in here. There's a built-in one in n8n, but personally, I like to use something called Pinecone. It's an external vector database. It's free to get started. I've never actually spent money doing this, but this is probably my preferred option. And so if we open up a new tab, we type in vector database. this is the application that I would prefer using. I think that this is probably one of the best ones out there, and you can sign up completely for free. So I'm actually going to go ahead. I'm going to create an account here. I'm going to log in with my Google account, and we're going to get this set up in a matter of a couple seconds or minutes here. Okay, so I've gone ahead, added or created an account here. Okay, I'm going to drag this next to my workflow. And what we're going to do is we're going to add documents to the vector store. So the document that we just retrieved in Google Drive, downloaded, we're going to add into the vector Pinecone store. So we're going to double click in here and make sure the first thing is we actually add credentials. And so we need something called an API key. You can think about this like a password, where we're essentially just telling Pinecone, you know, it's us, we're verifying ourselves, this is who we actually are. We're going to go ahead, create an API key, and I'm going to call this test and create. And then we just copy this and then paste it back inside the API key section here. And now we are good to go. And the next thing in here is we need to choose something called an index. Now, an index essentially is, you can think about it like a database. You can have multiple different databases in Pinecone, and they just call an index kind of like a database. That's probably the closest way that I would refer to it as. And how we create this is we click on database at the top here, and we're going to click on create index, and we can call this whatever we want. Test. I'm just going to call this test video. And the only thing we need to do here is just make sure the configuration is set to text embedding 3 small. This is how we are going to embed data. So let me just back up here and talk about what I mean by this. So in the presentation that I put together here, we have vector databases, right? And so the thing is that in order for us to get data like this, like text into the vector database, we need to encode that data into, or embed it into these like numbers, and these numbers are based on like semantic meaning, like how similar certain phrases are, so that we can pull out the exact or similar responses we're looking for. So AI Chatbot comes in and asks about your pricing. It finds either the exact pricing over here or something is closely related to the pricing, like the ballpark price range, and then pulls it out. But in order for it to understand, like, you know, how similar text is to one another, so if it asks for the pricing of plumbing, it gives you like the ballpark range. We encode the text in numbers here, or embed it, so that it can find the most semantically similar search term. And so that's the process of embedding. We use the model text embedding 3 small to do this, and we'll create the index down here. Okay, cool. So circling back in here, now that we've created this, I'm going to actually come back and choose that. So from the list, I'm going to choose test video, and we're going to insert a document in. But what I want to make sure we're doing here is we need to make sure that we're accounting for the fact that this is binary data and not text data. So in order to do that, this Pinecone database requires 2 fields. And so the first field is the embedding model. And we kind of talked about that. This is like how we take the text and we change it into, you know, specific numbers and all that kind of stuff, so that we can encode it properly, so that we can recall it later on. And there's lots of models here, but the one we're going to actually, I think there's not lots, there's just one. So I take that back. This is why we chose text embedding 3 small, and now we are good to go. So that's the embedding. This is turning text into those numbers so that we can recall it later. And then we need the default data loader. And so with this default data loader, we just need to make sure that the type of data is not JSON, but it's binary data, because we're passing in a binary file here. We need to make sure that it recognizes the data type that we're looking to pass in. And so all of the rest of this can remain the same. Oops, we'll change this to binary, mode type, load all input data, and then we could choose specific things, load PDF documents or automatically detect. I would just choose automatically detect, because if you're loading in multiple files here, maybe one time it's a CSV, maybe another time it's a PDF, all that kind of stuff. So it's just kind of, I think, a bit nicer to just account for everything. And then the only other thing here is the text splitting, which I would just keep as simple. And what text splitting means is, like, we'll go back to this presentation here. Text splitting is just usually these models will break down the text into smaller segments. So if you added like an ebook in here, it's not going to add like the whole ebook in one go. It'll break it down into segments of text. And there's multiple ways you can break it down, but usually you want a recursive text splitter, which means, and this is what it does by default, essentially when it breaks down text, it tries to break it down by sentence or paragraph to make sure that the message being inserted in, like the syntax or the semantics or the meaning behind the text, is kept the same. It's like it's kept intact, because a lot of the times you can cut the text by like 30 characters and you might cut it mid-sentence and then the meaning for the sentence is gone, and then it just doesn't make sense anymore. And so you don't want a system like that, because if you get rid of the meaning, then it's hard to find the actual information that you're searching for in the RAG database. And so we're just going to keep the text splitting this simple here, and we're going to stop that, and we can go ahead and we can test this out by executing the particular workflow. We're going to download this this document, and then we're going to add it into our particular Pinecone vector store. So this is just going to take a bit of time to be able to process this document and add it into the vector database. But we'll see here that it's breaking the text down, and the betting batch size is 200. To be honest, I don't know what it means by exactly like 200 batch size. I think it's just, yeah, I don't entirely know. But right now, it's going through the process of breaking this down into smaller pieces. So if we like looked at this document here, it's not going to have this all in one go. It's going to break it down maybe by like potentially question and answer, for instance, or question and then answer, and question and then answer. And so it looks like we're still loading the data. Sometimes this takes a bit of time, and once it's good to go, then what we'll do is we will move on to the next section of this, which is actually retrieving the data back. So we've inserted the data in. Now what we need to do is retrieve the data back from this. And as we're actually just kind of waiting for this to load, I'm going to go ahead and add in the second part to retrieve the data. We're going to use a chat trigger here, and we want to message through here. And keep in mind, we can swap this out at any point in time. We can swap it out for any of these other triggers like Twilio, Telegram, Siri, Gmail, Slack, WhatsApp. I'm just going to stick with this because we've already talked about how to do it with all these other applications. And we're going to need to reference that data. And so how we're going to do this is we're going to send a message here. Okay. And we're going to, and it actually looks like we ran into an error here. And so it says problem with node, Pinecone vector store, and we entered in the wrong dimension here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually go back to Pinecone, and I need to create a new index. And this time what I want to do is I'm just going to call this test video number 2. And we need to do one small change, which I made a mistake on. And that is the dimension down here needs to be changed to 1536 in order for this to work properly. It was we had it by default by 512. It was expecting 1536 here as dimensions. And once we go ahead and change this, then it should work. So I'm just going to go ahead, create this new index, and then we're going to essentially swap this one out by entering in version 2 down here. And now this time we'll save it and we'll execute it, and it should work this time perfectly fine. Okay, perfect. So everything looked good here. We'll notice too that the embedding down here, it has literally chopped this up in different chunks. It's putting it into random numbers here. These numbers are correlated based on semantic meaning. And so it's going to group similar things together, very similarly to how we were grouping together this vector database over here, animals together, fruits together, all of that kind of stuff, pricing together, and you got it, right? And so this default loader is breaking it down into chunks here. Instead of this large PDF file, we're no longer just having this PDF coming in here, but we're actually breaking this down into 6 different segments here, so that it's a lot easier for the RAG system to be able to pull out something, right? It's just more manageable when you're dealing with smaller chunks of data. And so now we're going to move on to the second part of this, and that second part is going to be actually retrieving the data. So we're going to choose an on chat message here. And now that we have the data inside this Pinecone database, Well, we actually have to retrieve it. And we've already talked about quite extensively, like all of the different ways that you can connect in triggers and all that kind of stuff. And so I'll leave it to you if you guys want to change it. I'm just going to go ahead with this basic chat node here. And the next thing we're going to do is call an AI agent. And so with this AI agent, we're going to fetch data from this RAG system here. And so again, very similarly, we're going to set this AI agent up with the same way. The chat model is going to be OpenAI, and we're just going to choose the latest version, which is 4.1 at the time of this recording. We're going to choose a basic memory here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to add a tool, and I'm going to choose Pinecone Vector Store. And what this is going to do is this is going to allow us to retrieve information when we query. This AI agent is going to retrieve the information from Pinecone and then send it back to us. And we need an embedding model here, and this is going to be embedding AI, OpenAI, and we just need to make sure it's -3 small. And now what we're going to do is be able to retrieve information. The operation mode has to be retrieve document as tool for AI agent. You can switch it to these other ones. It's just that in order to have it as a setup using an AI agent, it has to be for the as tool for AI agent, because right now this is currently a tool. We're going to choose the right index, which is test-video2. We have the test-video2. And by the way, we can see the results coming in here. This is kind of like the actual data coming through. Now, we'll see the text in here as well from that we just entered into this. So it's breaking it down into these chunks. Like, for example, definitely we'll identify the cause. And so you can see that it's actually like clumping together the message by the meaning. So it's a lot, like it's not breaking up randomly, which is nice, so that when we need to recall certain questions, we'll actually get the right answers that we're looking for. And the description here, what this is essentially saying is explain to the LLM what this tool does. A good specific description would allow LLMs to produce exact results much more often. Okay, so you're call this tool to retrieve, data from the Pinecone Vector Store to answer customer questions about our plumbing business. The goal is to find and deliver the most accurate answer to the question a client has. Okay, cool. And so this is important. We want to have a good description in here describing what's going on. And then in the AI agent, it's also very important here with the system message too, because if you don't add these prompts in here, it's probably going to mess up. And so we just need to be very clear. So again, if we go back to like the ultimate prompting guide here, we need to have multiple things, number 1 to 5. So the first thing is we're defining the AI agent. I'm going to flip this to expression so I can open this up. So you're a helpful AI chatbot tasked with receiving customer questions and finding the most accurate answers for those questions in the connected tool, which is the Pinecone Vector database. Okay. You will always query the Pinecone Vector database to retrieve answers. These answers will be information related to our company, for example. And I'm just saying this because, again, like this is a plumbing example, so I want to give like, something related to the context of this particular PDF file that we're loading in here. Okay, cool. So that's the first thing. And then I'll do tools next. So tools, number 1 is Pinecone Vector Store. Call this tool to retrieve answers to the questions customers have. And then we'll go to the next step here, which is to define the output, if anything. There is no output format, so we can leave it blank just because by default it'll send a message. And number 4 is instructions. And I'm just going to say, please think through the question that a customer has and make sure to pass the correct question to the Pinecone vector store in a way that it has all the information required to properly answer that question. Make sure you set the Pinecone vector store up for success by making sure it can pull the correct answer every time. Okay, and then rules, if there is any. I'm just going to leave it without rules for now, and we can go ahead and test this out. So I'm just going to, first of all, stop this and just turn this workflow off so that we can access the second workflow down here. And we're going to open the chat. I'm going to ask a particular question. I'm going to say, what plumbing services do you offer? And let's go ahead and see if it can pull out the specific question. We offer a full range of plumbing services, including leak repairs, pipe replacement, drain cleaning, water heat installation, sewer line inspections, fixture installations, and more. Okay, cool. We can ask another thing. How quickly can I schedule a service call? So we'll ask that. How quickly can I schedule a service call? Okay, and we'll go ahead, ask the same thing. We aim to offer same day or next day service whenever possible. For emergencies, we'll dispatch the technician immediately to respond to your call. Okay, and we offer the same day or next day services whenever possible. For emergencies, we dispatch a technician. So essentially you can see that it's literally pulling in the exact answers on this particular spreadsheet and on this particular FAQ. And you can see how powerful this gets if you're not just adding in like documents from Google Drive or like an FAQ, but you could literally web scrape your entire site. So my site over here, Automatable, like I could web scrape every single page here, and I could train this on the history of my company. You can train on the pricing, the options, on everything. We could train it on our standard operating procedures, our FAQs. I could train it on our contracts if we wanted to. The one thing I will say though, the more and more I've done this, is that you want to be hyper conservative with the data you put in here. You don't want to just load in a bunch of crap, because the problem is like if you have too much data, it might conflict, and the moment it starts conflicting, it'll pull in different answers every single time. So I think data hygiene is like super important, and just make sure if you're going to build out a system like this, you make sure to feed it in the right answers. So take some time to make sure that the data you're putting into this is accurate. And then once you're happy with this, then you can turn this into a chatbot. So for example, this could be like a chatbot where all of a sudden you connect it into, let's just go back to our example here. You can connect it into an internal chatbot. Now all of a sudden, if your team has questions on Slack, you can give them answers back immediately. So if they ask internal questions, now you can help them out. If, for instance, your clients email you, you could answer questions there. If people send you WhatsApp messages, you can answer there. Text messages, you can answer here. If somebody's responding in your CRM and you text through your CRM, you can do it there too. And so the options are virtually endless, but this is a great way to be able to train an AI chatbot on the history of your company and allow it to be able to give you the most accurate answers back. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. I'm going to leave a ton more free blueprints down below for you guys to get started with, as well as the remaining blueprints for you guys to also finish off this main AI agent workflow here. And so if you guys want to take this to the next level, I'll leave a video demonstrating how I built this thing out, as well as the rest of the blueprints. And if you guys are looking to take AI automation to the next level, learn more about AI agents and all that kind of stuff, I'd highly recommend taking a look at my school community here. There's two main goals: to help people, first of all, build an AI automation agency with the proven roadmap that's just worked for me, and it works for most or pretty much every single person, as long as they put in the work in the community. Just every single day I hear people telling me they see results. And then the next group of people are for those that are looking to automate their entire business in months and not years. I give you the exact blueprints that allowed me to scale to 7 figures and effectively replace myself from a job. And so I know it worked for me, know it worked for tons of other people in my community, and I'm sure it would work for you as well. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you found value in this. If you did, make sure to hit like and subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks and bye-bye.